Hi guys, welcome to another exciting episode of the Come Up and Cut. My name is Tabo Changela, and today we are in Hatfield, Pretoria for another thought-provoking conversation. We are joined by the owner, founder, and industrial psychologist at Maketi Industrial Psychology Services, Miriam Maketi. I really hope that you guys will take a lot from this episode, and thank you for joining us, guys.
So today I'm joined by a very special guest. I'm here with Miriam Maketi, who's an industrial psychologist. She's also a founder of Maketi Industrial Psychologist. Hi, Miriam. Thank you for accepting our invitation to your lovely office space here in Hatfield. Can you please just introduce yourself to my guests and tell them more about your services and what you do before we get started with the show?
Yeah, I'm Miriam Maketi from Maketi Industrial Psychology Services, and we are here in Hatfield. We currently have 2 offices, here in Hatfield and in Willowbrook Office Park in the west of Johannesburg. And we're really fortunate to be able to provide a range of industrial psychology services, to both individuals and organizations and institutions. And we've been operating for about 7 years now. And yeah, we love what we do.
Yeah. I want to focus today's episode more on the employee point of view. I feel like every time an industrial psychologist or an external party is invited to a company, it's always to fix whatever the company is struggling with. But I feel like less focus is on the employees. Do you guys offer those services, like not your company, but industrial psychology? Do you guys have a platform where the focus is solely on employees?
Yeah, absolutely. And whether it's the employee themselves coming to us or the organization coming to us for the employee. So, issues of employee engagement, employee satisfaction, issues of rewards in the workplace, motivation, productivity and efficiency, development, career development and advancement in the organization. So those programs would focus on the employee. Obviously, then the organization would benefit in the interim.
Obviously, you guys have like certain programs that you implement to ensure a healthy working relationship with, like, within the company, good cultural shift, like all these programs that you guys set out. But what happens when you have this program and it does not work, and certain employees still feel like they're not being appreciated, they're not growing, they're stuck? Are there things that those employees can do rather than leaving the company, or is leaving now the only resort for them, where they've tried your programs and doesn't mean that your programs don't work? Maybe the company's not implementing them properly. What happens when a personal employee feels that way, like nothing is working for me here?
Yeah, I would think, the first, one of the first things that you would want to do as an industrial psychologist, to spend a lot of time in the diagnosis process. How did we get to the point of lack of trust from an employee? Where did that start? Where are we now, and what exactly is the issue? Because obviously leaving an organization is the last resort, especially in the current economic climate. But you would want to spend a considerable amount of time in diagnosing the issue and formulating strategies to build trust. Because if you fully understand where trust was broken, then you're able to address those intricate details to maybe build trust again, or maybe shift the culture in a way that will facilitate a trust environment.
So I just want to give you a scenario. I work for you, perhaps, and I'm at the point where I'm unhappy, but now the external parties are gone. It's just me and my employer. How do I approach this without being seen as a troublemaker, without being seen as being malicious? How do I tell my employer that, dude, I'm unhappy? Because I feel like a lot of people feel targeted. As soon as you voice out your opinion, people, like management, starts viewing you in a different light. How do people speak out in regards to their unhappiness?
Yeah, you'd want to first have an internal investigation of what truly is making you happy, so that you are able to articulate that And if you know exactly what is making you unhappy, for example, you made a promise that if I reach this target, then this is the reward I received. However, this has not happened. Now, this obviously is making me unhappy. Then we look at communication skills. Does your culture welcome does it have an open door policy where you can just go in and sit with your manager? Do you need to sit down and write an email? Do you need to bring in someone, a coach, an independent someone, perhaps someone from another department to say, can we have a look at this? Are you able to reach out to maybe your manager's manager, but in a cordial way to discuss the issue and try and separate the issue from the emotion so that both parties feel as though there's an issue that is being addressed as opposed to an attack. And that is also intricate because it depends on the culture of your organization, whether there is open communication, whether feedback is encouraged in the organization. Because if there's one thing that is counterproductive is staying in an environment where you are unhappy. Yeah.
Cool. You brought something very interesting, culture. I want to speak about culture because all different companies have different cultures.
Yeah.
How important is culture? In fact, what is culture before we get to the importance of it? What is culture within the working environment sphere?
Organizational culture has a lot of components in it. For example, I'll just make examples. Is it an aggressive culture? Is it people-oriented? Is it detail-oriented? Is it task-oriented kind of culture? Is it goal-focused culture? Is there an open communication type of culture? So organizational culture as a concept has a lot of components in there. And it is important because it shapes how we do things, how we relate to the customer, how we relate to each other. And it's I always say that as an industrial psychologist that it should be clearly defined so that you can be able to target the culture that you are looking for. If you don't know what you are looking for, then you can't target it. So it becomes one of the most intricate things. It's almost like flavor in a dish. You know that this is our culture. This is what sets us apart from organization B.
And companies kind of diversing from their culture, moving away. I've seen a lot of companies grow, small businesses. They start up being very people orientated. They take pride in their people, but as the company grows, they start to be more profit minded. They don't really care about the employees' well-being anymore. Does that kind of affect the growth of the company, where now the culture was this and now the company is shifting, but the employees are not being made aware that, okay guys, there's been a culture shift? Does that impact the growth, the happiness of the employees?
Absolutely, and it probably starts with morale because like you're saying that we are used to a certain culture and now there's a shift without communication. And in terms of culture shift, there's nothing intrinsically incorrect with shifting culture, but the communication of we are shifting towards a certain direction and getting buy-in, and try not to exclude those qualities that made us strong as a team, that assisted us in working together. Then we are able to have a look and say, hey, we were a team of 10, now we are a team of 100. Now we are no longer national, we are international. How do we then shift the culture so that we maintain the team work and yet we accommodate other factors so that we stay relevant? And I think communication in terms of culture shift is important. And also, as organizations grow, it is important that you grow with the people, because the people are the ones that assisted in the growth. And so if there's an investment in the people that assisted in growing, then you'll find that there's less hindrances in issues such as culture or morale or people feeling they're not satisfied or they're unhappy in the workplace.
Growing with the people, that's the word that you use. An organization growing with the people. I just want to counter that statement and ask you a different question. Does a high staff turnover then influence the company's ability to grow? If perhaps a department cannot maintain to keep a person for like 2 years? Every 6 months is someone leaving. Does that hinder the productivity of the company? Does that hit the morale of the people that are coming in? Like every 6 months or every 3 months there's someone leaving. There's no set to it. This person has been here for 10 years. Does that affect the morale of the team?
Yeah, absolutely. High turnover is just one of those aspects in the workplace that you want to try and avoid, because it takes time to build a team, to build cohesion in a team, to build flow in a team. Now, when someone leaves, they leave with their own set of traits, characteristics, the value that they added to the team. They leave with a certain skill. You bring someone, the team needs to get used to that someone. There needs to be some kind of training towards how we do things, training towards the culture. And if you think of the process of high turnover, then you see that teams start, working slowly. And also, to be quite honest, one of the things that we see is that when employees leave the organization, then the people that are behind, they are saying, are we at the right place? And if you have organizations or employees saying, but am I at the right place? Then you're not getting the best of the employee. Because then most of the time they are questioning whether my output, am I going to give my output to this organization, because my team member that I'd gotten so used to has now left. And someone else in another department has now left, and someone else next to me is now leaving. And so you want to avoid that from building a team, and also the cost that comes with training, induction, onboarding. It's quite a lot.
There's a statement that I once heard. I was working for this other particular company, and we were told that everyone is replaceable. Regardless of how long you've been here, regardless of what you do, you are replaceable. Now we know that you can replace person within like the position. If maybe I'm your receptionist, you can get another receptionist, but can you really replace whatever that person brought within the team? Is that replaceable? Like as you mentioned, the trades, the leadership qualities, maybe. Is it right to tell the people that you are replaceable within my team?
I think there is a lot more value. You get a lot more out of people if you affirm them. While it might be a fact that you recruit someone else, you get more out of your team, out of your employee, by affirming them, by speaking about their errors as developmental areas, as opposed to their shortcomings. And so the language that we use, it's part of culture. The language that we use is very important, because then if you want to get the best out of your employee, rather feed into how valuable they are, as opposed to saying, listen here, we can get someone as soon as you're out the door. You get less from employees, from negative reinforcement. It brings out less outcomes than positive reinforcement. So I would definitely say, if you want to get more out of your employees, try positive reinforcement, positive messaging.
So before this episode, I put out like a message on my social media to tell the people that we're doing an industrial psychologist show. Can they just share their experiences of their stories about the work culture? And I was just reading through those messages, and I think 98% of the messages were negative, where people feel unvalued, people feel like they don't matter within an organization. And the big one was division, where people are complaining about division and exclusion, whether be it race, age, gender. But I picked up that a lot of companies still have exclusion. Someone might say there's a men-only zone, like only men can engage in these conversations. Some people might say only black people can talk about. Like there's just so much exclusion within the corporate companies, and I think companies everywhere. But how do we fix that? How do we get to a point where we are working towards fixing those things? Because something that I read was people saying, every time I speak about it, my manager like shut me off, or I got fired, or like it's very few people that spoke out and something positive happened.
And it's interesting how the messaging that comes often the messaging that comes from employees and employers varies. And I think if an employer and organization values their employees, they will try and find a common ground of communication.
Yeah.
Because you can never ever receive the best outcome in a negative environment, in an environment that's riddled with distrust or issues maybe regarding to, you know, racial discrimination or any kind of discrimination, really. And so from an employee perspective, what do? You look at the resources that are at hand in the organization.
Yeah.
Are there systems to assist you? Is there an HR department, an employee wellness department, a person that is seen in the organization as someone who can be trusted, the middle ground, and say, we seem to have issues, and if you're not alone, can you get buy-in from your other team members or other members of the organization and say, we come because we are noticing this issue. And obviously tread softly, as you have said, that there are times where, or rather employees are often afraid to speak up. Because you know, nobody wants to lose their job or be, you know, some kind of demoted because you raised an issue. And so look at the resources that you have. Who can you get buy-in from to assist you with the communication process? And often, you know, if you have someone in management that can bring in a neutral party and we can sit together and have an open conversation, then that. However, companies might not have those resources, but someone in the team, you know, if you can get someone in the team, in the department, a departmental head that is neutral to start the processes of communicating regarding those issues, then it's a starting point.
So do you think that's where the disconnect is between like top management and employee, like normal employees, maybe junior staff? There's no middle ground, where I feel like the people that are employed to do that, which is like mid management, are not really doing it. They're not filtering the message through properly.
Employee engagement has to be consistent. It can't be, we have an employee engagement program that is going to run for 6 weeks and then we'll see it next year, you know. And so whether it's middle management or upper management or whoever who's in the team, if we take the issue of employee engagement seriously, then it is a daily practice. It is a daily practice. What are you seeing in the team? Are you getting feedback from the team? Are you requesting feedback from your team? And the feedback that you receive from the team are they deliverables? Can they see that you're working on it? Are you giving them feedback? And so if then that level of engagement is consistent, then you'll find that there isn't a gap where you feel like you are far from management. It shouldn't look that way.
There needs to be that communication thing.
There needs to be open communication.
There's a word that we always hear, performance management. I don't really know, like, I know the word sounds easy, but in terms of the work, like work world, I don't know what the word means. Cause like, okay, you're gonna be performance managed, but you never really are, until maybe you're getting fired and be like, oh, we've been busy with your performance management. On the 17th of June, you didn't do this. Like, what is it in like industrial psychology terms, performance management?
Yeah, managing performance should work for both the employer and the employee. And it should be a process where it's transparent, it's open, and it's fair to everyone. And so it's an anomaly that people, shouldn't understand what performance management is, whereas it's going on in the organization. And so, there are key indicators. First from your job description, what you're required to do on a daily basis. And so your supervisor, your manager sits down with you and says, these are your deliverables. This is your key performance indicators. This is what you're expected to do in your job. If you exceed expectations, this is what it looks like. This is how I'm going to measure it. This is how often I'm going to measure it. And I often tell employees that take that seriously. Own it because it affects so much of what goes on, whether it's promotion, whether it's benefits and rewards, or some kind of development program that you might be placed in. Take your performance management seriously and own it. Own it. Ensure that you have conversations with your manager. Am I understanding you correctly that this is what you expect from me? Am I understanding you that this is the rating that you have given me for this reason? And always request constant feedback. Remember that this affects you, right? And if you have ownership of it, then you have the confidence to knock on your manager's door and say, hey, I just want to make sure if I'm still on the right track. And not wait for when everyone is trying to score and they're under pressure, but you take ownership of it and say, I actually want to do well. I want to get a good score, whether it's something personal to you, where you're proud of the work that you do, or the rewards that come with performance management.
You said you need to know when you're exceeding or when you're underperforming. But I think a lot of people know when they're underperforming, but they're hardly told when they're exceeding. Like when you're underperforming, you're constantly reminded that your job description says this, but you're not doing this. Your contract says this, but you're not doing this. So what happens if you're in a area where you feel like, you know what, I've been exceeding, I've been doing above and beyond, year in, year out, I'm not being appreciated. How do you approach that conversation with your manager, where you like, every day I'm leaving the office at this time, but I feel like I'm not appreciated, or you're not getting promotions. People are being promoted over you. How do you approach that situation as a person?
It makes it easy when there's a set performance management criteria.
Okay.
Because then you can obviously put everything on black and white and say the numbers, the stats, say that I'm performing. And also, what is important, Thabo, is when you continually have conversations with your manager, then you can put them in writing and say, this is what I am doing. What do you think? Can I request feedback from you? So that when you start a conversation, it's not just a conversation that lacks facts, or maybe, especially in an environment where maybe there might be a rift between yourself and your manager, you are able to then speak and say, you gave me this feedback, you have constantly given me this feedback, this is my score, this is what I've been doing, these are the outcomes. Is there a reason why I am not receiving what I expect to receive? And also, I'm assuming then the expectation was brought on by the company to say, if you achieve, then this is what happens. Hence, I reiterate, take ownership of your performance. Remember that it's your manager that is supposed to give you feedback. And so go knock on the door and ask for feedback. Ask questions. Am I doing well? Are you satisfied? Is there anything more that I can do? And put it on black and white, so that you can show evidence. If in an event that someone has to come in and intervene, there's evidence to show that you are actually performing, you are exceeding expectations.
So what I'm getting for you is people need to own, and there needs to be communication from both ends, because it does not make sense that the employer is communicating and the employee is not communicating, or vice versa. There needs to be open communication. Cool. I have another interesting question about job interviews. Obviously there's guidelines that companies have that, a person needs to have this before you can employ them. They need to show this set of qualities. What do employees do when they go to a job interview? How do they measure if this company is what I'm looking for or not? Because I feel like oftentimes we as employees settle, I got a job interview wherever. I've been unemployed for 6 months. I'm just gonna go. And then after 3 months, you feel unappreciated. Like, how do you measure if this is the right environment for me as an employee?
I always say, do your research. We have a beautiful thing called the internet now. Do your research with regards to this organization, and check the messaging that comes from the organization. Check the policies. If you are able to speak to someone that works there or has worked there, do that, how they advertise, their branding, their slogans and their motto, their vision. You can tell from those messaging whether or what the culture is. You know, are you going into a culture that's very competitive, that's aggressive, or a culture that's people oriented? Now, one of the most important things you want to do as an employee is to know yourself, so that you can measure yourself against an organization to say, is there a merge? Is there a correlation? Is it something? Because it's a relationship.
Yeah,
you know,
yeah,
it's a transactional relationship, but it is a relationship. And one of the important ways of knowing and understanding yourself from an organizational perspective, where you're going to be giving or contracting your skills, is what motivates you. You know, what are your skills or your competencies, your personality, you know, your ethics, your values, and does that organization speak to your values? And off of the internet, there's a lot of information that you can actually get, and even in small little sub messaging, I think, that you can get through adverts, through their branding, you know, what they promote and how they promote it, and really just have an intricate conversation with yourself. Do I see myself working in this environment? As opposed to settling.
And are you able to say during the interview, like, guys, thank you, but I feel like this is not where I belong. Like, can you do that? Not in a rude way, but I feel like interviewers do that, where they be like, thank you very much for your time. Can you do that also as an interviewee, where you're just being honest with the guys, like, I don't like how this is going, thank you for your time?
I think the best option is probably during the interview, also request permission to ask them questions.
Okay.
Because there might be some issues that were not clear from your research, and unanswered questions. Then you ask, how about this issue and that, and then make up your mind. And obviously, if you receive an offer, you can decline an offer.
I have an interesting question. I don't know if you can answer it. If you can't, it's cool. Why are pay slips so sacred within the working environment? Why is it such a hidden thing, how much people get paid? Like, from your point of view.
Yeah, it's a confidential issue.
Is it for the employee or for the employer?
Both. I think there's consensus that you don't necessarily want your colleague to know how much you're earning, or your manager, or your manager doesn't want you to know how much they're earning. So it's viewed as a confidential issue, and so you'll find that your payroll or your HR people hold that information very dearly.
The reason I'm asking this is, like, every time someone finds a payslip within, like, a printer or something, it always causes havoc within the office. This person is doing less than me, but he's getting paid more than me. Like, there's always an issue every time there's like a payslip in the printer, or whoever just hears that information. Wouldn't it be easier though if there was like an open policy, not to say we're getting paid this much, but we know this is the scale of people doing Tabo's job description, this is where they are, like that bracket. Wouldn't that be easier for both the organization and the employees, knowing that if I have an accounting degree, I have 3 years experience, this is my bracket? But I feel like that doesn't exist, because you can easily pay someone 50K and pay another one like 10 rand, and they would never ever know.
Yeah, remember that remuneration comes from a contract agreement. So you and the employer get into a contract and you agree on certain terms. And so what is stipulated in one contract might not look the same as the other. And so there are intricate details to remuneration than just a job description. In terms of transparency of remuneration, companies normally have scales, they benchmark, but in those scales, so you might be within the same scale, but you'll find that someone might be slightly higher. It comes with issues of contract. For example, if I come into an organization and I was working somewhere and earning at a certain mark, then I'm already earning there. I'm not going to get less. I'll either get the same or a little bit higher.
Sure, yeah.
And so just the details of the contract is really the issue. And people come into organizations and they negotiate what they feel that they are worth, or certain benefits that they want. And yeah, it becomes a complex issue.
Yeah, like money is very important to everyone, you know, be it a company. That's why there's companies, to make profit, obviously. So if you've been at a place for, like, let's say 3 or 4 years, you've been getting like an annual increase, but you're at the point where you feel like I need to be getting an appreciation raise. I've been going above and beyond, and this goes back to the performance management that we went to. But now just want to focus on the salary structure. How do you tell your manager that, you know, I feel like I need to be getting paid more?
It starts with, the conversation we had about at the performance management stage, where there's an agreement, because there should be an agreement of your key performance indicators and the outcomes thereof, where you communicate your expectation, so that you avoid being disgruntled, and also don't assume that if you meet these expectations, therefore, or because someone else or maybe a colleague did something similar, therefore the same would apply to you. It goes back to ownership. So have a conversation. When this is met, what is the outcome? This is my expectation. This is what I would like. Is it possible? Can we negotiate? I'm really interested in going over and above the call of duty, and in return, I would like. And it's a conversation. It's a transactional relationship. And you should try and have that conversation, as opposed to relying on expectation.
And if that conversation does not happen like the way you expected it to go, is that where you need to make a decision? If this is where my future lies, do I need to start looking elsewhere? I know that we're often against people leaving jobs, especially in the current economic climate. But I'm a firm believer in your mental health comes first, your happiness comes first, because it does not help you sitting in an office or wherever and you're unhappy. You know?
No, absolutely, absolutely. And if you have diagnosed that you are unhappy in an organization, if you have diagnosed that you have done everything in your capacity to sort of like facilitate conversations, to bring forth people, then you might want to check what are the alternatives for you. Obviously, you need to tread softly, and think creatively what the alternatives for you. And also, what would be, what is the reason that the organization does not meet what it has been promised? I'm a huge proponent of put everything on paper. So let everything be agreed on paper, meaning email communication. Let us all agree, and it's there, so that if somehow there's a discrepancy that we might not understand where it comes from, then we can refer back. We can refer back and put energy and resources in try and restoring the relationship, as opposed to breaking it.
Can conversations like this, like we at an external party now, I'm unhappy with the way my manager talks to me, or I'm unhappy with whatever I'm getting, like whatever the unhappiness might be, me calling my manager in and asking her to bring in like a third person, does that make or break the relationship between employee and superior? If I, as an employee, am requesting that I think we need to see someone, like couples therapy or something like that.
Couples therapy for
I think we need that.
Well, it shouldn't. It shouldn't. Especially if you have managers or employers that are open to solving issues. Every time that there is a relationship, you know that there are times when the relationship is not smooth running. There are misunderstandings, there are miscommunications. And so if there is in fact mutual respect in this relationship, then we are able to say, my manager, with all due respect, is it possible for us to bring someone in? And always try and maintain that respect relationship, and say why. Why? I feel I have not been heard for these reasons. These are the steps that I have taken and I feel I've not been heard. Is it possible that we can bring someone in and specifically address issue A, B, and C? And a manager that is invested in their employees would be open to that suggestion, whether it's someone, an external consultant, or someone from a different department, an HR, personnel, then they would be open to that, because at the end of the day, we can't have a cavalier approach to, oh, they're unhappy, they'll get over it.
Yeah.
You want your team to be cohesive, to work together, come up with solutions together, have that open loop of communication and feedback.
Do you, like, as industrial psychologists, take care of that, like the employees' mental state? I know that you guys are not clinical, you're more focused on training and the organizational stuff. Do you also, though, get to a point where you are like, okay, I think this person needs more help, he's really, really unhappy? And do you communicate that with the company, that I feel like employee A, B, C is not happy, he's really unhappy? Do you communicate those things, or do you just, I don't know, how do you?
Absolutely. So it is our job to be able to diagnose and find the issue, the problem. And what we do then is, from the problem, we decide whether are we able to address the problem, or if you're saying mental health, what exactly in mental health are we talking about? Are we talking, you are depressed, you are anxious, maybe PTSD from something, then we can refer you to a clinical psychologist or any kind of help. However, what is important is we first diagnose what the issue is, and then we're able to come up with solutions, either from ourselves, where we implement programs, where we try and facilitate that relationship, that trust. Are you in the right space? We bring in psychometric assessments to assist us in diagnosing the issue. Are we moving you to a different department? Or, sometimes it's easy things that we find from psychometrics, where you'll find that you are actually not in the right department, and we just move you to a different department according to your strengths, and you thrive.
Yeah, psychometrics are those tests that people take, right?
Psychometric assessments.
And people say you can't fail it. Like, you can't fail a psychometric test.
No, you can't fail it.
I said I failed mine in grade 9. I don't know how, but
well,
performance manage, like those performance tests, right? If you're in the right, I'm just making sure we're talking about the same thing.
Yes.
Because they said you don't fail these things, and then I failed mine for some odd reason.
No, you can't fail them because it's not a right or wrong answer. So I'm not sure the communication regarding failing. You can't fail it because it's not a right or wrong answer. It's basically just trying to understand Tabo better.
I need to get hold of that woman.
And are you, your innovation, your personality, what you like, what you value, your strengths in terms of your skills, are you mathematically orientated, or you like to work with numbers or words, or that's what we want, and then align you with the right job. So you can't fail it. There's no pass or fail.
Okay.
It was probably just an incorrect messaging.
Like, I've been in like corporate for like close to 10 years now, and the last time I saw that assessment, I was in high school, and I've worked for various companies, and when we were preparing this, I asked people, have you ever done a psychometric test within the organization that you're working for, to see if you're in the right department, if you're happy? And a lot of people said no, this hasn't been done, because you get someone who is, as you said, he's very mathematical, he's very analytical, but then you put her or him in HR, that person won't be happy, And every time they apply for position in the other department, people are just like, no. But there is no assessment to see what your strengths and weaknesses are. So how then do organizations like that make decisions on, are you in the right space or not? How does it happen? And would you recommend people to do those tests?
Yeah, you get a lot of information from psychometric assessments, a lot of valuable information from them. And I think what I find that a lot of organizations, then they'll invest in the recruitment process, where when you are coming in, then they'll bring in psychometric assessments to see whether, there is a correlation or congruence between the person and the job. Whereas you can go deeper into your career development and bring in psychometric assessments. Unfortunately, normally when we are called in is when there's an issue with an employee, then we bring back the psychometric assessments to see, you know, what the issue is, to assist us in diagnosing the problem. But I would recommend, you know, if you have the budget, if you say you are people oriented, you care about your people, let that be part of your development, you know, because it gives a lot of valuable information for the management and also for the employee.
So you're big on people first and then profit will follow later.
Well, I think, you know, profit more often than not, it cannot take place. It's people that bring profit. You know,
that's true. Yeah.
In most organizations, you do need a person even to facilitate machines and manage machines. So if you are, you know, looking for the end product called profit, you probably want to invest in the person that facilitates that.
Yeah. So invest in people, and then those people will bring in the profits.
Yes.
Okay. I want to speak about career growth now. I'm at the point where I feel like I need to be growing in the work environment. So we've done all this, you know, I spoke to my manager, but I feel like I need to be growing and, you know, moving into different aspects of life. How do you then leave an organization gracefully? Because I feel like a lot of times when people leave, that 4-week notice period is not a happy moment for a lot of people when you're resigning. How do you get to a point where you're leaving gracefully? You know, you're not angry, you're not hating the environment, you just want to grow, you know?
You would hope that at the resignation process there was a cordial relationship between management and employee, and I think most organizations know that you know, in and out, or organizations coming in, or rather employees coming in and leaving, it's a healthy part and healthy process in organizations. So you would want to, you know, think that, hey, I'm leaving because I have another opportunity somewhere in this time, usually 4 weeks. I'm happy to assist whoever that's coming in, or to just give training to anyone, and as opposed to, you know, a sort of like an aura that is not positive. You don't want to leave an organization in that state. But also, if you find yourself in a position like that, you move on. Do your best so that you can move on to a new space and do your best. And I often say, employees, do your best with what you have been given. If from your perspective you've done all that you can, move on. It's another part of your journey. You move on to your next journey.
Yeah. And there's this new thing that's happened. Oh, it's not new. It's been a year now. COVID. It's been a year. Can you believe it?
Yeah.
The everything has changed in the world. But I feel like what COVID did is it kind of hit us to a point where we had to move like 3 or 4 years into the future, where now interviews are being done online, where people are starting to work from home, you know. Have you gotten to a point where you guys have adjusted to assisting with that? How do you performance manage a person who's working from home? How do you know that this person is doing their job? You know?
There's definitely a redefinition of the workplace.
Yeah.
And you are right that it has moved away from just being office-based and working from home. It's easy to manage performance from wherever you can, because if you clearly define deliverables, then you can manage it. You know, a deliverable doesn't have to be someone sitting at a desk in an office. It should be outcome-based. And so if the team understands that this is the outcome, this is what is required from me, it shouldn't be an issue at all. And I think then the quicker organizations adjust to where, you know, COVID has placed us, then the easier it will be. And it also goes back to, are we then using technology to our advantage? You know, it's now become our friend. We should do that and be part of, have team building sessions online.
Yes.
You know,
But doesn't that make you like antisocial, where everything is now online? You know, some kids go to school like 2-3 times a week, and now you're working from home. I know this is more of a broader question, but team buildings, having coffee with your colleagues, do you not get to a point where you need to have that face-to-face interaction? And if you do, how do organizations then move, like make people still feel welcome if they're working from home? Yeah.
yeah. I mean, there's value in human interaction, right?
Sure.
There's value in human interaction.
Yes.
However, you can work with what you have, and so a redefinition of culture. So we can come together online, and for the first 15 minutes of work, share your coffee, and we're talking about, you know, non-work issues, and it's part of us, and you share with us what's in your coffee, what's in your tea today, and it's a way that we can actually still come together as a team and talk. Maybe on a Friday, take out a little bit of time to have, you know, lunch together, but online, and keep it simple, because we are indeed a team. And when it's safe to get back in the office, maybe you can schedule like a once a week meet and greet with the team we love together. But a lot of things that you can do online to just keep us together, huddled together, throwing in jokes, and you know, not just having a meeting regarding work, which is what we do very well, but just talk about how are the kids doing, how's everyone, and the climate, and then we go back to work to just facilitate that we are still a group.
Do you think we should get to a point where we go back, even post-COVID, like go back to the traditional 9 to 5, or is the world evolving to a more, I don't know, later stage where things are now being done online?
Research shows that this is the direction we were heading anyway, and I think rightfully your analysis is correct that COVID just accelerated the process, and so there's no need to decelerate and go back unless your business requires people to be in the office. And I see that with certain organizations, they'll have certain people work a few days, similar with what schools are doing, a few days in the office, a few days out, but moving with the trends is one of the best way to stay relevant. There's no need to decelerate and try and go back to an old way of doing things. You have to be agile. You have to be able to check future trends and see, are you going to be relevant 10 years from now?
Yeah. So I got a question from one of our subscribers that said I need to ask you, for an unemployed person in this whole new way of life, how do you then adjust to like looking for jobs online? How do you adjust to having online interviews? Because you need to present yourself in a certain manner. You need to, you know, how do then unemployed people adjust to this fast-tracked life? Yeah, because I feel like there's a lot of unemployed people in South Africa.
There really is. I think it's one of the tragedies of you know, our employment rate, even, you know, post or pre-COVID was quite alarming. I think the third quarter we had 29.1, and there's a study that came in Feb 2021 that we're sitting on 32.5% of unemployment. Sure. It's staggering. It's alarming, and so we as industrial psychologists looking at organizations, we are saying to individuals, to young people, innovate. Getting to know who you are becomes key, because you need to find a correlation and a congruence between what you like, what speaks to you, what you are good at, what you enjoy, and innovate from that point, and not necessarily rely on your qualification.
Sure.
But also know and understand that you can provide your qualification as a consultant, even without experience. If there's something that you're good at, there's something that you can do, you can provide those services from a consulting perspective. So think broadly, think creatively, innovate. That is where the future is going to go. Whatever it is that you can do, let someone pay for it, as opposed to waiting for the economics of South Africa or Africa or the world to change. We don't know when the shift is going to take place, how it's going to take place, and the pace in which it will take place. And now I would say innovate. Get to know yourself. What are you good at? What speaks to you? What do you enjoy? What comes easy? And try and generate income from that. And you'll find that then the issue of unemployment, we then start speaking of entrepreneurs. You know, that's the world of work is moving rapidly into entrepreneurship. Whatever that you can do, you can contract. Someone else needs it.
A lot of things are being outsourced.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay, cool. So do you as industrial psychologists, you know, obviously you guys were probably the busiest industry during this whole COVID thing, with companies restructuring, with companies retrenching, you know. The first question that I want to ask you is about retrenchment. How do you guys approach retrenchment, and how do you advise companies to let people know that they're being retrenched?
Yeah, and first is to try and find various ways to avoid retrenchment. And in this time, we know that, you know, many organizations do not have a choice but to retrench, and have an open communication. You know, I emphasize communication so much in a lot of the work that I do with organizations, because it just assists, it solves a lot of problems. You know, get someone to assist you with your communication strategy, and so that people know and understand that they're not just being thrown out, but it's a retrenchment for these reasons. And also ensure that, you know, legislatively you are following the law.
Sure.
With regards to, you know, you are on point with the law with your retrenchment. And more often than not, even though it's a painful thing for any employee to go through, when they understand that there is need for retrenchment for these reasons, it's open, it's transparent, it doesn't seem like you are targeting, you know, certain people, then it's accepted. It's accepted.
And then second part of the question, the employee, how does he pick himself up? Because, you know, first of all, I feel like it's a bit humiliating, even if, you know, we understand why the company is doing it. You get to ask yourself questions. Am I not good enough? Why me? Why is this person staying? Why am I leaving? How do you pick yourself up from that, you know, in a more work environment? How do you start looking for jobs again? How do you gain that confidence back? Yeah, as a person that's just been retrenched.
You know, I'm a believer in taking time to confront and appreciate the emotions that you are feeling, so that you are able to then stand up and move on to the next phase. To say, this has happened, it actually doesn't sit well with me, and it's okay to be in that space, but now I need income, I need to find other ways. And right now, especially now post-COVID, where a lot of organizations are wary of hiring, that is the truth. I go back to the point that I've said, instead of being battered by rejections and, you know, seeing it as if something is wrong with me. There's absolutely nothing wrong with you. Rather focus your energy on innovating. You know, find something that you like, something that you're good at, to even in the interim generate some kind of income.
Yeah.
Also, speak to people that are going through the same thing. There are a whole lot of, you know, people, unfortunately, that have suffered job losses.
Sure.
Find someone. Now we have social media that connects a lot of people, and you find that you're not alone, so that you don't, you know, sit at home and think you're alone. You find that you're not alone. You speak to someone about how you're feeling, what they're doing, what opportunities are out there. And even if you have to take a learnership in the interim, you can do that. But more importantly, try and find a space where you can be creative regarding the skills that you have. You will be surprised that someone is willing to pay for them.
Yeah. So in closing, I need you to speak to 3 different people. Just give them advice from your scope of work. The first one is organizations, you know, in this COVID time, in these transition times, it's organizations and then employees and just an unemployed person. What would you say to those three people?
Yeah, organizations, I would say that communicate the challenges that you're currently facing. A lot of organizations are facing challenges with keeping employees, profit margins, clients, some clients, you don't have clients anymore, as many clients as you can. Communicate that. Let it be a collaborative effort as to how do we build teams? How do we then go back to where we were in terms of profitability, so that both the organization and the employee feel like this thing is ours. We need to make sure we get back to a healthy space. If you need to cut hours, you need to cut benefits. Communicate as to why, as opposed to what's happening in the world, we are cutting benefits.
Sure. Yeah.
And most of the time people want to hang on to their jobs until we are all in some kind of a normal phase. So I would say that to the employee, do not be weary of going to your manager and trying to open communication lines. Take ownership of your job, take pride in your job, do your best, and always ask, request feedback, welcome feedback, and write down, let there be a paper trail of your development, and communicate where you'd want to go. If you feel that, man, I feel like I belong in another department, to say, is there a way that I can get trained towards, or divert to a certain department? Do that. Take ownership of your career. It is your career. You are contracted to bring a skill, and take pride in it and enjoy your work. Something that's amazing is that we spend 58% of our lives at work. So you don't want to spend the majority of your life in an unhappy environment. So invest in getting to know an organization before you enter, and also invest in growing yourself, because at the end of the day, you don't want to be retired and think, oh, I spend majority of my life unhappy. And I repeat myself to the unemployed person: innovate, speak to like-minded people, read, research. Don't spend too much time wallowing in the sadness. There are a lot of people around the world that are going through something or similar to what you're going through. And I repeat yet again, you'll be surprised that someone is willing to pay for what you can offer. So find those people, spend time reading. If you can learn a new skill, why not? Do it. And right now, technology is huge.
Miriam, thank you very much for the conversation, man.
Thank you for having me.
It was really nice. I learned a lot. I think my favorite part was when you tell people to innovate. That's the way the world is going.
Absolutely.
And there's a lot of people that will pay for your services. That's what I'm taking out of this. Thank you very much. For your beautiful office.
Thank you. We try.
That's it, guys. Thank you very much for tuning in. I really hope that you really enjoyed it, and I hope that you learned a lot, just like we did. If you have any questions, we will leave Miriam's contact details in the below. That's it from us, guys. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone, for tuning into the Come Up. If you enjoyed the conversation, please like and subscribe. If you want to get hold of me, you can get hold of me on my website, www.mmageti.co.za, Mageti Industrial Psychology Services. I'm in Hatfield, Pretoria, and also in the west of Johannesburg, in Willowbrook. We provide various industrial psychology services, psychometric assessments, medical legal services, medical negligence services, change management, organizational development, and various services that you might need. You can gladly get hold of us. Thank you.